Lauda im Freitagtraining beinahe eine Kollision mit fast 300 km pro Stunde gehabt hätte. Theo Fabi fährt den zweiten Brabham-BMW. Ein Dreher und ein Unfall im Rennen, ein einziges Mal in den Weltmeisterschaftspunkten, 4. Platz in Detroit. Dann haben wir Nigel Mansell auf Lotus, Keke Rosberg mit dem Williams, Ayrton Senna mit dem Tolman, gefolgt von Lafitte, Alboreto, Patrese, Arnoux, Chiva, Butzen, De Cesare, Sura, Berger, Hinault, Gardner, Ginzani, Polmar, Alliot und Rottengatter. Wichtig für Sie, Manfred Winkelhock kann wegen eines Getriebeschadens nicht starten. Hier hat Lafitte Schwierigkeiten gehabt. Und der Schweizer Marc Surer musste in den Ersatzwagen von Eros umsteigen. 25 Autos also nur am Start. Wir schauen uns noch einmal den Österreichring an. Eine mittlerweile ja längst klassisch gewordene Rennstrecke. Mittlerweile die schnellste der Welt. Geschwindigkeit bei Start und Ziel 295,4 km pro Stunde. Tambay, Lauda und Prost waren im Training die schnellsten. Dann kommt diese berühmte Schikane gleich nach Start und Ziel. Nelson Piquets Trainingsbestzeit war 1:26,173. Der Schnitt 248 km pro Stunde. Man nähert sich also auf dem Österreichring der 250 km pro Stunde Schallmauer. Die schnellste Runde im Rennen, und das ist der offizielle Rundenrekord, René Arnoux 1980, 1:32,53, Schnitt 231 km pro Stunde. Man hat einige Kurven auf dem Österreichring umbenannt. Die erste Schikane, das frühere heller Lichteis, heißt jetzt Niki-Schikane. Dann die Rechtskurve, die im 4. Gang genommen wird, früher Glatz- oder Sebring-Kurve, heißt Dr. Tiroch-Kurve. Dann kommt die Bosch-Kurve, die jetzt in Greiner-Kurve umbenannt wurde, nach dem steirischen Landeshauptmann, der so viel Herz für den Motorsport gehabt hat und so viel für den Formel 1 Grand Prix von Österreich getan hat. Die beiden Texaner.
On the warm-up lap, the competitors come out of what is now called, at the behest of Bernie Ecclestone, the Craner curve, which makes me think of Donington rather than the Österreichring. But I think I will probably, and James, continue to call the Bosch curve. And in pole position for the 14th time in his career, Nelson Piquet, who snatched it yesterday with an absolutely fantastic lap at over 154 miles an hour, 1 minute 26.17 seconds, compared with René Arnoux' 1980 lap record, and that was a time of 132.5, a speed of 143 miles an hour. So yesterday Nelson Piquet was 11 miles an hour faster than the admittedly 4-year-old lap record. Alain Prost in second position, protecting his World Championship position, in a very strong position to do so. The competitors now coming out of the Jochen-Rindt curve, completing their warm-up lap to start the Austrian Grand Prix, which is crucial to Prost and Piquet and Lauda and Elio De Angelis in terms of the World Championship. The race distance is 51 laps, that's 188.3 miles an hour. Paul Rocher, the BMW engineer, told me yesterday that Nelson Piquet's engine would be developing 770 brake horsepower in today's race trim. And the others are not going to be developing many less. Least of all, the TAG-engined McLarens of Prost and Lauda, and you can see that Lauda in 4th position is behind his teammate Prost. They get away, a good start, bad start by Piquet, good start by Prost, who goes straight into the lead. Elio De Angelis is stuck on the grid, and it's Prost leading, Piquet in second position. They go into the Heller Licht chicane. Prost, Piquet, Lauda, then it's Senna, Ayrton Senna in 4th place. Ahead of it looks like Nigel Mansell and Keke Rosberg. It must be Mansell. And Mansell put aside his race tyres in warm-up and said those will do. He went out on another set, and I'm expecting to go a lot quicker as they go round now. It's Prost, Piquet, Lauda.
That was terribly bad luck at the start there on Patrick Tambay, because he was stuck behind De Angelis, who had stalled or whatever he had. He failed to get away, and Tambay moved forward just fraction, and he realised what was going on and was then boxed, and he hadn't got enough lock to get round him. We can't see the start line from here to see exactly what's happened, whether they both got away, but we'll try and pick that up in a moment.
And there's a bit of a mystery here because Derek Ongaro, the starter, is still on the starters roster, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a pretty exciting development, and possibly with Bernie Ecclestone giving Derek Ongaro the time of day at the top of his voice to see this race stopped. But we'll soon know as the leaders add off. Who's there? That looks like Rotengatter. That looks like Hub Rotengatter gone off at the Texaco beds. It is Rotengatter off. That's where Elliot, and indeed the race is being stopped. And Ayrton Senna will be absolutely heartbroken and furious about that, because he had got up into 4th position, and the 1984 Grand Prix disease has hit the Austrian Grand Prix because it is stopped at the end of race 1. I don't know the official reason. It's certainly nothing to do with Hub Rotengatter going off.
Yes, that's a bit of a mystery. I think I really don't know why they're stopping that race. I mean, obviously it was very bad luck on Patrick Tambay, but that isn't normally a reason to stop a Grand Prix. It was certainly a messy start. We couldn't see the lights as to maybe the field jumped the start or something like that, but it all seems very strange. Anyway, we will endeavour to find out and inform you.
Not only bad luck for Ayrton Senna, who got up to 4th, but for Nigel Mansell, who, as I suspected, using those tyres of his, which he obviously liked so much in the warm-up, had gone straight from 5th to 8th and was looking good. Now, what is the situation? It's a quite simple one this time, because if less than 2 laps of the race have been completed when it is stopped, it is just regarded as never happened, never having happened. So that means to say that the grid will reform, and they're getting quite used to this now. They've had a lot of practice one way and another. There is Alain Prost, who had an absolutely magnificent start. The grid will reform, and they will set off again, hopefully, for the complete 51.
Auch Rosberg so weit nach vorne. Vielleicht gelingt es uns Ihnen in der Zeitlupe jetzt noch einmal dieses Startmanöver zu zeigen. Auf alle Fälle passiert ist nichts, beruhigen Sie sich wieder. Wir werden den Start jetzt wahrscheinlich noch einmal erleben. Offiziell höre ich soeben von der Rennleitung, dass ein Fahrer entweder De Angelis oder Tambay die Hand gehoben hat, den Arm hochgestreckt hat und bedeutet hat, Motor abgestorben, Start also wiederholt. Wir haben ja heuer schon so viele oder überhaupt in den letzten Jahren so viele Startkollisionen erlebt. Hier haben Sie in Österreich ja Jo Gartner, dass man also froh sein kann, wenn einmal bei einem Abbruch eines Formel 1 Grand Prix nichts passiert ist, und wir haben jetzt gleich wieder einen zweiten Start. Jetzt werden die Diskussionen beginnen, darf Benzin nachgefüllt werden und wie schaut es mit der neuen Renndistanz aus? Denn gefahren wurde ja eine Aufwärmrunde und dann 2 Runden im Rennen. Allerdings, wenn ein Abbruch innerhalb der beiden ersten Runden erfolgt, und das war ja auch heute der Fall, dann gilt der erste Start nicht, dann fängt sozusagen alles wieder bei Null an.
Startvorgang also abgebrochen. Jetzt wahrscheinlich, dass noch einmal eine Einführungsrunde gefahren wird, wie es eigentlich üblich ist, und dann erst der Start erfolgt. Das heißt, es wird um einige Minuten alles verzögern, und da bin ich gespannt, in welchem Maße die Renndistanz jetzt verkürzt wird. Somit auf die Fahrer ein wenig zum Teil Diskussionen.
Ich vermute eine Aufwärmrunde und dann 49 Rennrunden.
Nach dem grünen Licht ist ja weggefahren, und die haben richtig aufs Haus gebracht, der hat noch hinaus, wenn wir
eine Minute noch bis zur neuen Aufwärmrunde, und dann gibt es wieder das ganz normale Startmanöver und hoffentlich diesmal einen gelungenen Start. Für Gerhard Berger relativ gut, weil er jetzt schon etwas mehr Routine im Starten hat. Hat heute Vormittag die Startmanöver trainiert. hat er 3 Mechaniker selber angeheuert, unter ihnen Franz Bucher, der vor über 10 Jahren Helmut Marko in seinem Formel-1-Jahr bei BAM bereits betreut hat. Berger hat im Training einige Schwierigkeiten. Ein Leck im Kühler, das bei McLaren dann geschweißt wurde. Heute Vormittag ein Dreher auf Öl in der Schikane, allerdings gemeinsam mit René Arnoux. So, noch einmal die Aufwärmrunde und vielleicht noch einmal eine kurze Vorstellung des Österreichrings. Es geht bergauf zur Niki-Schikane, wie sie jetzt umbenannt wurde. Geschwindigkeit oben, Einfahrtsgeschwindigkeit, zweiter Gang, etwa 120. Dann wird in der Kurve in den dritten Gang geschaltet. 165 bis 170 Kilometer ausgangs der Kurve. Und dann die lange Gerade. Ginzani und Gardner haben Sie hier gesehen. Ja, und als letzter ist der Holländer Huub Rottengatter zum zweiten Mal dabei. Dieser Knick wird absolut voll gefahren. Mit 280 bis 285 Kilometer pro Stunde Anfahrt zur Tiroch-Kurve. Früher hieß sie, wie gesagt, Glatzkurve oder Sebring-Kurve. Die Kurve führt bergauf. Es ist also sehr, sehr wichtig, hier die richtige Linie zu erwischen und ja nicht im Bergaufteil Drehzahl zu verlieren, weil dann die lange Gerade kommt, die Schönberg-Gerade hinüber zur Bosch-Kurve. Von 250 weg voll beschleunigend. Dann der Knick auf der Schönberg-Geraden und das war genau die Stelle.
Not for the first time this year by a long chalk, a Grand Prix has been stopped, the Austrian Grand Prix, because when the lights changed colour, and that is the controversy at the moment, what colour they changed to, whether it was to yellow to abort or green for go, Elio De Angelis and, we are told, Huub Rottengatter, the Spirit driver, had their arms up, which indicated that they were not ready to go. Therefore, although the cars were racing on the first lap, the red flags came out, the drivers stopped, and now, 35 minutes after the original start, the Austrian Grand Prix is about to be restarted, having been stopped at the end of the first lap after the original start, because Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special Lotus and Huub Rottengatter in the Spirit Heart were both having problems, as a result of which they were stationary on the grid, as a result of which Derek Ongaro, the official starter, decided to abort the start. There was a lot of controversy amongst the drivers subsequently about whether they had seen yellow or green lights, but it's irrelevant now. The race was stopped, and the question that we ask ourselves here, and that you can shortly see the answer to, is will Nelson Piquet make a better start this time? He's getting a second opportunity because, a bit typically on the first start, I say typically in comparison with what he has been doing several times this year, he didn't get away very quickly. Alain Prost from second on the grid in his Marlboro McLaren got a superb start, as did Niki Lauda, and Nelson Piquet was in second position in a race which he really must win when the first lap in the first start was stopped. They're now going round the Jochen Rindt curve, named after the late, great, first ever Austrian world champion, and forming up to the grid. Piquet, pole position. Prost in the red and white McLaren behind him, second on the grid. Then Elio De Angelis, will he get away properly this time? To De Angelis' right and your left, the second of the red and white cars is Niki Lauda, fourth fastest on the grid. There is the Austrian, who very, very much needs to win this race to get ahead of his teammate in the World Championship, Alain Prost, by getting 9 points. And behind Lauda is Derek Warwick, And behind Elio De Angelis is Patrick Tambay. 51 laps, I say again, that's 188.3 miles. And Piquet's left again, and Prost gets away again. De Angelis gets away well this time, and gets ahead of Niki Lauda as they stream up. And it's Piquet going through. It looks as though Piquet's going to lead coming out of the Hella Leak curve, and they're all away clearly, except Fabi, who is stuck, and Piquet leads from Prost, and I think it's Tambay in one of the Renaults, and there is Ghinzani going off in the Osella, being passed by Rotgatter, who has already passed one of the Rams, and it is Nelson Piquet leading into the Glatz curve on lap 1, with the McLaren and the Renault behind him. Then Elio De Angelis, and they go up to the fastest part of the course, which is 190 miles an hour.
Yes, and that was a clear, the start then was a clear demonstration of the BMW's excellent power, because, as Murray rightly said, and as you saw, Piquet didn't get away very well, and yet he was able to power his way up the hill and claw back the lost ground at the start to get level going into the first corner and to come out the winner of that particular battle. So Nelson Piquet in the lead where he has to be to keep a grip on the championship, and we'll wait and see how they settle down.
Piquet, Prost, Warwick, and then Lauda and Senna and Rosberg, Alboreto, Arnoux, and there is the race leader, almost at the end of the first lap, out of the Jochen-Rindt curve. And Derek Warwick is hanging on superbly in third position. 1 lap completed, 50 to go. The Brabham leads. It's Prost in second place, Warwick in third place, up to the Hella Leak curve, hard on the brakes. It's Tambay third, Warwick fourth, De Angelis fifth, Lauda sixth, and Senna in sixth position.
Yes, De Angelis made a bit of a mistake coming out of the previous corner, the Jochen-Rindt curve, onto the start-finish line, and that let Derek Warwick move up a place.
And I'm aligned to Patrick Tambay, who got away from fifth position on the grid to third position in the race, and that's exactly where he is now. So it's Brabham leading, McLaren second, Renault in third position, and Alain Prost, of course, could, although I doubt that he will, stay there quite happily, because he would then be on 6 points for the World Championship and would only have lost 3 to Nelson Piquet, and there's a very considerable gap between them. But Nelson Piquet, if the reliability of his car is without question in this race, which it certainly hasn't been without question in previous races, because Nelson Piquet's won 2 races and got 18 points, but he's in the lead now, but with Prost definitely closing, with Lauda up with Warwick, and that is Ayrton Senna, and you see them go over the brow of a hill, down to the Jochen-Rindt curve, and Derek Warwick, Niki Lauda, and ahead of them, the leaders, as number 8, the Austrian, Niki Lauda, goes through, and the lead cars are ahead, so it's Piquet, Prost, Tambay, first, second, third, into the Hella Leak curve, better called chicane, Brabham, McLaren, Alain Prost, who has won 4 Grand Prix this year. The weather conditions are just about perfect.
Well, Prost looks to me to be taking it pretty comfortably behind Nelson. Nelson's on the limit. You see him sliding the car there through these long fast corners, giving it everything he's got, and Prost is staying very close to him. His car looks very stable indeed, and which confirms the form we've seen all season, and his only difficulty will be that he's probably not quite as fleet as the Brabham and the Straights, and so he will find Piquet a little bit difficult to pass, but I think from just looking at it, he looks to be very comfortable. There is Niki Lauda, who, of course, enjoys the same excellent road holding that Prost gets from his McLaren. And I expect, of course, to see Niki Lauda picking people off and starting to move up, because he, naturally, is very anxious to get in front of Prost. And if McLarens, incidentally, are in a 1-2 situation, or if they are perfectly entitled to race, their team orders are that they shall race until 10 laps to go. With 10 laps to go, their race must cease. These are their team orders. They're very sensible ones, because what the team don't want, and then of course the cars, they can slow down and conserve fuel, because what McLaren don't want is to perpetrate a tragedy where their drivers are out in front racing each other and they both run out of fuel. So those are the orders.
And you probably noticed that Niki Lauda has now got ahead of Warwick and is in 4th position and closing up, and there he is doing so on Patrick Tambay. So Niki Lauda, who started from 4th on the grid with his teammate 2nd, is already performing in that cool, surgical way of his, moving up through the grid. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him take Patrick Tambay in 3rd position fairly soon, because he's definitely reeling in the Renault, and it's a 2-car race in front, a 2-car race for 3rd position, and there it is, Tambay and Lauda. Warwick is in 5th position, and Nelson Piquet still leads a very confident and smooth-looking Alain Prost, who have completed 3 laps in this 51-lap race. Niki Lauda out of the newly named Craner curve, the Bosch curve. There is the reigning world champion, Piquet. Now look for Alain Prost. It's very easy to go off on that corner, incidentally. There are the most terrific loadings on the tyres. This is probably the most demanding Grand Prix circuit of all for tyres. There's Prost. So there's a big gap. There's nearly 4 seconds now between Alain Prost, who is in 2nd position, completing his 4th lap, and Patrick Tambay, who is in 3rd position. You just see him coming towards us now, followed by Niki Lauda, getting closer to the Renault all the time. Then in 5th position is Warwick, 6th is De Angelis, and 7th is Ayrton Senna. So Senna, who had got up to 4th position in the first lap of the first started race, is now in 7th position and going extremely well in the Hart-powered Toleman.
Yes, as usual, Senna's form has been absolutely wonderful this season since he came out of Formula 3 at the end of last year, having swept pretty well all before him, and he's now doing an absolutely marvellous job in the fast improving Toleman Hart car. Now here's the important battle at the moment. Lauda is up behind Tambay, and I have no doubt he'll be past him in due course. It remains to be seen how long it'll take him to complete that manoeuvre. It's not an easy circuit on which to pass this when you've got 2 fairly evenly matched cars, because with the corners all being so fast, what happens is that the cars depend for grip very much on their aerodynamics on their wings that push them down onto the road. And of course, when you're travelling at 150 miles an hour or more, or a bit less, right up behind another car, you're going through no air at all virtually, because you're going straight into the hole that the car in front has just made. And so you have less grip relatively than him, because you've got less air over your wings, and that means it's very difficult to get right up close behind somebody. Anyway, that's the battle just about to come into shot for 3rd place, and the main interest is going to be if and when Lauda can get past Tambay, is whether he can catch the leaders out front, who are just pulling away a little bit the leading pack.
Lap 6, this is the battle for 3rd. Tambay in the yellow Renault, Lauda in the red and white McLaren. The race still being led by Nelson Piquet in the Brabham-BMW. Here he is, chased by Alain Prost. They are on lap 6 out of 51. Then in 5th position, it's Derek Warwick, followed by Elio De Angelis, who is 6th, and Ayrton Senna, who is in 7th position, but is now, as I talk to you, past Elio De Angelis and up into 6th place. So the Brazilian in the Hart turbo-powered Toleman, which has only got about a 30 horsepower disadvantage over the Renaults, the TAG-powered McLarens, the Ferraris and the Brabhams in race trim, is starting to move up through the field as is in the points in 6th position. That's Senna. There is Lauda, 4th. So it's Brabham, McLaren, Renault, McLaren. And our producer is concentrating on the battle for 3rd position, and if you wonder why, he's Austrian. It's the Austrian Grand Prix, and the 2 who are battling for 3rd position behind these 2, Piquet and Prost, are Tambay, the Frenchman there, and that man, Niki Lauda, number 8, the Austrian.
Well, Lauda's now been behind Tambay in that same sort of distance for a couple of laps, and you see the problem that he's having. He can't get any grip if he gets any closer than that to the Renault, and the problem is that that isn't close enough to take advantage of the toe, because of course conversely in the corners it's a disadvantage following another car. When you get onto the straight, his hole in the air that you place yourself in makes your car go relatively fast on the straight. You see he's hauling in the Renault now, but the straights aren't quite long enough from where he has to start when he comes onto them because of this disadvantage around the corners. He's quite close now, that's as close as he's ever been around the Bosch curve, but again you see he lost a little bit of ground then because of the lack of grip. And now this is the corner into the left hand, and the car goes very light on the entrance to this corner here. You see the road falling away. Of course that's one of the problems, television doesn't show undulations. It's hard to see because there's quite a switch back towards circuit. Little twitch there from Patrick, and Niki is closer than ever before, but still I don't think close enough to have a dive for the inside going into the Jochen curve. No, he's not, but this is the closest he's been around the Jochen curve, and he may have a chance now when he gets up to the chicane at the top of the hill. He's again lost a bit of ground, you see, with that lack of grip through the corners. There's no doubt that Niki will be able to pull away when he gets past, but he may have to persuade Patrick to make a mistake. He had a little look then, but it was too hairy.
2.8 seconds between Prost in second place and Tambay in third position. Piquet leads, Lauda in fourth position still. It is still in fifth place, Derek Warwick in the second Renault. Sixth is Senna, seventh is De Angelis. Eighth is now Keke Rosberg, who's doing much better in the race than he did in practice. And in ninth position, in the second John Player Special, it's Nigel Mansell.
And Alain Prost, who when we last had a good look at him, I said looked to be going very easily in second place, may have just got his tyres off a little bit, because he seems to be struggling now to keep up with Piquet. In fact, I say struggling, he's not keeping up with Piquet, he's losing ground ever so slightly, and I get the feeling that Lauda, if he can get past Tambay, will be able to catch Prost reasonably quickly. Of course, what Niki has another consideration, the tyres are a bit marginal. You tend to do more damage to tyres again when sliding it about in the turbulent air caused by a car in front of you than you do when you're on your own. So that's the consideration. Niki, of course, will be well aware of this, but he will be very keen to look after his tyres. He had to drive very hard in the middle of the race in Germany at the German Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago, and he just about caught up Alain Prost, but the effort of doing that had tired his tyres out too much, and he then had to slip back and settle to second place. So this time I think Niki will be being extra conservative about his tyres. At this stage in the race, I don't think he'll be too worried about the distance that Piquet is putting on him. It's not anything that he won't be able to catch quickly. He's closer. He's making a bit of a challenge. I think this is the lap. The problem is you have to decide when you're going to make your challenge and stick to it and really have a go because of this tyre problem. But Lauda is certainly closer than he's ever been to Tambay, and may be able to get in the slipstream and have a look at outbreaking him into the Bosch curve. He's not, no, it's only a dab on the brakes, and no, he didn't have a go. I think a younger man might have had a go, and Michele Alboreto appears to be missing. We don't know what's become of him, and Niki is going through. Yes, Tambay's got the inside line, but I don't think he'll be able to use it. No. So Lauda finally gets the little mistake that he was looking for to help him get past Patrick Tambay, and he'll be well relieved. He'll be sighing a big sigh of relief, and now setting his sights on catching Prost with a minimum of work for his tyres.
Well, the gap was 2.8 seconds between Prost in second place and Tambay, who was then third, with Lauda right behind him. It'll probably be a bit more than that now, because Lauda may have lost a little time getting past Patrick Tambay, but you can see the way that the Austrian is now pulling away from the Frenchman, Patrick Tambay. You can see, too, that Prost is out of sight, literally, as they go into the Hella Leak chicane. They are on their 10th lap in this 51-lap race, so just about 1/5 race distance, and it's Piquet leading, Prost second in the McLaren, now third Lauda in the McLaren. Fourth is Patrick Tambay. In fifth position now is Elio De Angelis. In sixth position is Derek Warwick, because De Angelis has got ahead of Warwick, and now you see again Niki Lauda taking Patrick Tambay in the Renault as they come out of the Bosch curve and down to the Texaco chicane.
Yes, I got the feeling that Tambay might have missed a gear then, because he seemed to suddenly lose a few yards for no real reason. He wasn't sliding very wide out of the corner or anything, and they do have to shift up at about that point. So I would think, and of course you're still cornering a bit when you have to make that gear change, so it is a very difficult gear change. The chassis is moving about, it's under load, and it can be quite tricky, so I suspect that's what happened.
Lap 10, 1/5 distance, race order. Piquet leads, Prost second, Lauda, there he is now, third position. Fourth is Tambay, fifth De Angelis, sixth is Warwick, seventh is Senna, eighth is Rosberg, ninth is Mansell, 10th position is Michele Alboreto.
And we just got a glimpse of Prost has closed up that gap a little bit. He's a bit closer to Nelson Piquet than he was. He'll probably be a little bit more anxious now because he's got Niki Lauda behind him.
Patrick Tambay into the pits. And a lot of gesturing going on from Patrick. Tyres, so Tambay has changed tyres, and that will not have been a scheduled tyre stop. He's obviously had some sort of trouble with his Michelins to have come in on the 10th lap, and Keke Rosberg is also into the pits. Rosberg into the pits. He's a Goodyear runner, and there he is. So we knew that tyre wear was going to be very heavy at the Österreichring. It always is, because you get colossal loadings in the heat and on the terrific downforce that's exerted on these very, very long and fast corners. But I, for one, didn't expect it to be as early as this into the pits.
No, and they're just adjusting the front wing on Keke's car, which makes me... I think they were putting a little bit more on, which probably means that he had some understeer, which of course would ruin the front tyres very quickly. And so he's obviously got a balance problem on the car, and they're doing what they can about that, but it's not proving a very quick job. So there go the leaders. Nelson Piquet holding a little bit of a lead over Alain Prost, but certainly not what I'm sure he would feel is a comfortable one. Still a long way to go, and Lauda, of course, chasing those two hard, and as yet we haven't really been able to see whether he's actually catching or not.
Nelson Piquet here must be really praying for reliability, because when he's finished in races this year, he has almost invariably won. He's finished in 3 races, that's all, because he's failed to finish in 8. He won in Canada and he won in Detroit, and he was just out of the points in Britain. And actually he was leading the Austrian Grand Prix last year for 10 laps when he had to settle for 3rd place in the end. And you can see now the gap between Piquet, when he next appears, and Alain Prost, who is second. And there is Elio De Angelis, who is in 4th position. And Keke Rosberg coming up fast behind him, ahead of Derek Warwick, with Ayrton Senna closing up. So behind the first 3, things are getting very interesting indeed on lap 12. It's Piquet, the leader. There is Nigel Mansell. It's Prost second, Lauda third. 4th, 5th and 6th are De Angelis. Then in 5th position it's Derek Warwick. Then in 6th place it's Senna. And Nigel Mansell closing, and that is Jacques Lafitte's Williams Honda. And it looks as though his race is about to be run, as the Ferrari there of René Arnoux well down the field, being chased by Eddie Cheever, the American in the Alfa Romeo, who in turn has got Riccardo Patrese in the 2nd Alfa behind him. There is René Arnoux, who led last year when he got past, at this very point, he managed to get past Jarier when Patrick Tambay did not. And that was when Arnoux went through into the lead only last year to lose it to Nelson Piquet, who in turn lost it to Alain Prost, who won the 1983 Austrian Grand Prix and who is second in this year's event. So Arnoux, Cheever and Patrese. And they're in 11th, 12th and 13th positions at the present moment. That's how far down the Ferrari of René Arnoux ex-Renault driver is. There he goes, Arnoux, Chiva and Patrese. Great scrap on the circuit. Hellenic curve. This is about 130 miles an hour. Up into fourth gear and 140 miles an hour. Then into fifth gear and 180 miles an hour, approaching the Glatz curve, this right-hander here. Then it's down into fourth and down to a pedestrian for them, 140 miles an hour, accelerating out uphill to the highest point of the course, which they're approaching now. And they're doing about 160 when they go over the crest, still building up speed to 190 miles an hour as they go down to the Bosch curve, and into the pits comes Jacques Laffite. And out of the race goes Jacques Laffite. So there is a definite retirement. We have had, and Jacques Laffite's 1984 season, it gets grimmer and grimmer race by race. The Frenchman has not scored a single point this year, and this is a man who in his time has won 6 Grand Prix. That is Niki Lauda, who is in third position. Now and look at that. Niki Lauda is coming through the field. He's got ahead of him 2 men he's got to lap. One of them looks like the dreaded Andrea de Cesaris, who has taken over Jean-Pierre Jérier's role of a mobile chicane. And he's been chased, it may be Eno actually. He's being chased by one of the Rams, who is being taken quite effortlessly by Niki Lauda, who, as you see, is now the fastest driver on the circuit with a lap of 1:33.01. Niki Lauda, and that compares with the lap record held by René Arnoux of 1:32.5.
Which was very courteous of him. That's better, because it's something he hasn't been doing this year, and that allows Niki to go on his progress, and he is catching Alain Prost. Now you saw Alain Prost just disappearing into the chicane, and that's a little bit closer, particularly bearing in mind that Niki had those 2 back markers to negotiate, which would have lost him a little bit of ground, but he is marginally closer. He's not exactly hauling them in hand over fist.
There has never been a French world champion. Alain Prost, who came so close to it last year, means to be that man, the first ever French world champion. But not if his teammate, Niki Lauda, can do anything about catching and passing the Frenchman, because as James has said, there are no team orders in the McLaren team. We're looking at Nelson Piquet, who's closing up on Philippe Alliot or Jonathan Palmer. I can tell you that it's one of the Hart-powered Ram cars, and it's Jonathan Palmer. So he has been lapped already on lap 15 by the race leader Nelson Piquet, who, barring reliability problems, seems to be, or tyre problems, seems to be set for a victory at the present moment, because he's got a very commanding cushion now between himself and Alain Prost. And the real point of interest at the present moment is not so much whether Piquet will be able to keep ahead of Prost as he completes his 15th lap in this 51 lap race, but whether Niki Lauda in third position will be able to catch his teammate Alain Prost, take second place from him, and get 6 points for the World Championship instead of 4 for third. There's Lauda. Number 10 is Jonathan Palmer, and Theo Fabi, who we have not actually seen anything of in this race, but who was very badly left at the second start, is now up to 12th place on the grid and in the race. And on lap 15, it is Piquet leading, Prost second, Lauda that we're looking at passing Alliot now in the second Ram in third position. Fourth is still Elio De Angelis. Fifth is still Derek Warwick. Sixth is still Senna. Seventh is Mansell. Eighth is Tombe after that tyre change. Ninth is Michele Alboreto. 10th is Eddie Chiva. And in 11th place it's Patrese. This gives us a good chance to watch a real master at work. After 15 laps, the third place man, number 8, Niki Lauda, twice a world champion in his 16 years of racing. An amazing amount of experience, because this is his 153rd Grand Prix, and I suspect there is no racing move that Niki Lauda hasn't made, no racing situation he hasn't had to cope with. There's Piquet, that's Prost in second position, the next man up is Lauda in third, and it is definitely now a case of only 3.5 seconds covering Prost and Lauda, and you saw how close Prost was to Nelson Piquet. So my guess is, subject to my checking it next time I see all three of them, that there's about a 5-second gap covering the first and third men, the third man being number 8, Niki Lauda. And I see Warwick into the pits. There you see him as well. So this is the second Renault. The Renaults really seem to be wearing their tyres, James.
Yes, but of course it's a very marginal thing, and I think probably they're not, in their efforts to keep up with the front, at the pace at the front, they've probably, first of all, gone fairly speculative on their choice of compound, and then I think the drivers have probably gone pretty hard, because certainly you saw Tambay being pressed very hard by Lauda. He fended him off, but in so doing must have overcooked his tyres, got him too hot and had to come in. And there is Rosberg in the pits and out of the race, just getting out of the car. I'm sure that means he's whatever problem he's got is considered, at least by him, to be terminal. So another disappointing, very disappointing weekend for the Williams team, with the feet already out. But Lauda at the front is definitely the man to watch. He's catching both of the leaders, and just completed yet another lap back through the Hellenic chicane.
And Nigel Mansell is up into 6th position, so both the John Player Special Team Lotus cars are in the top 6, with De Angelis 4th and Mansell 6th, who is catching Senna in 5th position. Hopefully we'll see something of that. Meantime, the leader, Nelson Piquet, lap 17. Second, Alain Prost, who's taking Berger, the young Austrian, in his first Grand Prix in the BMW-powered ATS, and has been lapped by the World Championship leader, number 7 there, Alain Prost, on lap 17. The race order being Piquet leading, Prost second, Lauda third, De Angelis 4th, Senna 5th, chased by Mansell 6th. In 7th place now, Patrick Tambay, who has changed tyres. 8th is Alboreto. In 9th position, it's Chiva. And past Berger goes Niki Lauda in 3rd place, and up to 10th position, Derek Warwick, after his tyre change. Lap 18, 51 lap race. Again, it is the same story that has become so familiar to us in Grand Prix racing this year. It's 1.4 seconds between Piquet and Prost. It's about 2.5 seconds between Prost and Lauda. So Niki Lauda is very, very slowly, inching his way towards Alain Prost, who is his target for 2nd place. There's the Austrian. This is the Glatz curve. It's a lot steeper on the ground than it looks on the television screen. Piquet, Prost, Lauda over the crest. Down to the 140-mile-an-hour Bosch curve, and out goes the Renault of Derek Warwick, who has retired from the Austrian Grand Prix. So the Renault reliability bogey has struck again, and it will be an unhappy Derek Warwick. Big puff of smoke hanging over the circuit there. Probably a campfire, hopefully. I didn't see any problem in the foreground. And there's an enormous crowd here on this dull, overcast day, which has kept the heat down a bit. And now Piquet is closing on Marc Surer, the Swiss driver of the Arrows BMW. Piquet being on his 19th lap. Chiva has been into the pits now. Watch Piquet lap Sura. Goes right up to his gearbox, just jinks to the right. Sura looks in his mirrors, and we'll see Alain Prost behind him. Now, if Prost can't get cleanly past the 14th place man Marc Sura, it will give Piquet the chance to break away a bit and Lauda the chance to close up a bit. Now, Prost is passed, but I think Piquet in the process marginally increased his lead, and it looks to me as though Niki Lauda is going to be in a better position to pass Sura as they come down to the Bosch curve on the 20th lap than Prost was. It is not inconceivable, of course, far from it, because Prost is not dropping back, that in fact the Frenchman is just watching form, knowing that Nelson Piquet has failed to finish in 8 Grand Prix this year.
I like very much because first is a very quick circuit. Second, well, it's a lot of up and downs, a lot of corner that you don't see the end of the corner. It's very exciting to drive here. It's very quick. I think for me it's one of the
There you heard the words of world champion Nelson Piquet. Very exciting indeed. I should think it's absolutely hair-raising in the cockpit, and it looks to me as though Alain Prost is actually closing up a bit on this, the 20th lap, which is 40% of the race gone, 2/5 distance. And also another question, of course, inevitably is Prost going to fight for a win, knowing that in the process he might go off, that in the process he might strain the machinery, when the gap between himself with 43.5 points and Piquet with 18 points at the moment is, well, you work it out. I can't, my mental arithmetic isn't that good while I'm talking to you. But thank you, James, 26.5. And so, I mean, even if Prost finishes in second place, the gap would only come down to 23.5 points. But I would imagine that Prost must be very sensitive about Nelson Piquet, because with only 4 races to go last year, there was a 14-point gap between Prost in the lead and Piquet in second place, and Piquet still won the World Championship with a magnificent charge in the closing races of the year, and he won that World Championship by only 2 points, 59 to Prost's 57, in the last race of the year, which last year was the South African Grand Prix. So, having hypothesised that Prost would be happy to settle for second place, I think I'll challenge myself and say that he won't.
Yes, well, I don't think you're right there. I don't think he will be settling for second place. But his big worry is Niki Lauda, of course. That's the person he's got to beat, because he must stretch his lead. He's only got what, 4.5 points on Niki Lauda, and that's certainly too close for comfort. You need to feel that you're in a controlling lead at any stage during a World Championship. You really need to be at least a win and a half ahead, i.e. 9 points plus plenty, because racing cars break down. You have one breakdown, your nearest rival wins, and that's 9 points closed for immediately. So a comfortable lead is probably really something in excess of 2 wins, and that Prost hasn't got, so he's got to still fight for every point he can get. He can't sandbag it yet.
Well, now we've moved down the field a bit to watch the battle for 5th position between that car and that one. The black and gold one is in 6th place. It is the John Player Special Lotus of Nigel Mansell, and he's chasing Ayrton Senna in the Turbo Hart-powered Toleman, who has just lapped Gerhard Berger in the ATS, and Nigel Mansell will now have to do so. It's lap 22, with the battle now really developing for the lead between Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, Prost second, Lauda third, De Angelis is in 4th position, but here is the battle for 5th. And I know it is a much used word, but I think it is correctly applied to Ayrton Senna when I say brilliant. This incredibly mature Brazilian, who is 24 years old, but has the maturity of somebody at least 10 years older than him, who demands a lot from his team and gets it, demands a lot from himself and provides it. Last year's British Formula 3 champion moved quite effortlessly into Formula 1 Grand Prix racing, and this is the battle now on lap 23. Piquet leading, next Prost second, Bosch curve, 140 miles an hour, Texaco bend.
Yes, I think Prost is responding to the danger behind, because Niki is definitely chipping away at that lead, and if Niki gets up behind him, then I think he will want to pass Prost, pass Piquet quite badly. I think on the subject of what we were saying before, Murray, if for instance Lauda was to break down, then I think Alain Prost would settle for second place behind Piquet, because that it would only be a 3-point swing, as you said, and it really makes no difference to the overall position, but he wouldn't want to lose 3 points to Lauda, so he will want to, if anything, if Lauda gets any close to them, he'd probably much prefer to get in front of Piquet and use Piquet as a buffer.
Yes, the diminutive Alain Prost, who looks as though he wouldn't have the strength to ride a fairy cycle, never mind pedal a McLaren as quickly as he's going, is definitely charging, forcing Nelson Piquet onwards, who's now up to one of the arrows. It's Boutsen, Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, and in front of Boutsen is Arnoux in the Ferrari, and now Piquet's going to take Boutsen as they go down to the Bosch curve and close up on René Arnoux, who's going to have the ignominy of being lapped in a Ferrari by Nelson Piquet's Brabham-BMW, which won't be enjoyed one little bit by the enormous Italian element at the Österreichring today, watching and hoping as ever for a Ferrari victory, of which there's only been one this year, Alboreto in Belgium. So on lap 24, the Austrian Grand Prix, a 51-lap race, is being led, not commandingly, but fairly comfortably, by Nelson Piquet, followed by the two McLarens of Alain Prost, the World Championship leader, Niki Lauda in third place. Then in fourth position, Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special Lotus. In fifth position, Senna in the Tolman. Sixth is Nigel Mansell. In seventh place is Derek.
Mauro Forghieri, der Chefingenieur, Chefkonstrukteur, sollte entmachtet werden. Plötzlich vorige Woche wieder die große Vertrauenserklärung des Kommentatore für Enzo Ferrari, für Mauro Forghieri. Alboreto liegt heute an 8. Stelle und Arnoux an 11. Erinnern Sie sich, welche unvergessliche Rennen Ferrari-Fahrer auf dem Österreichring hier schon geliefert haben? 1970 etwa, als wir zum ersten und letzten Mal Jochen Rindt auf dem Österreichring gesehen haben. X und Regazzoni, die damals ein Mannschaftsrennen Erster und Zweiter nach Hause gefahren haben. Heute trennt Piquet die McLaren-Fahrer Prost und Lauda von einem McLaren-Doppelsieg. Ich würde sagen, überhaupt bis jetzt ein erwartetes Zwischenergebnis. Piquet war der schnellste Mann im Training. Niki Lauda 1:32,882. Damit kommt er dem Rundenrekord schon näher. Ihm fehlen es nur noch 3 Zehntel auf die Bestzeit von René Arnoux, aufgestellt 1980, damals natürlich noch mit den Schürzenautos, die ja um so viel schneller waren in den Kurven. Ich würde gern die Tiroler Formel 1-Fans ein bisschen beruhigen. Ich glaube, wir müssen uns wegen Gerhard Bergers etwas langsamer gewordenen Fahrt keine Sorgen machen. Wir haben Funkverbindung zur Box, zu BMW, zu Brabham-BMW, also zu Ingenieur Paul Roche. Und Ingenieur Roche glaubt, dass Berger auf alle Fälle den Ladedruck etwas zurückgenommen hat. Dadurch klingt der Motor etwas rauer, etwas unsauber. Aber das haben wir ja schon bei sehr vielen Siegesfahrten von Nelson Piquet gehört, dass man befürchten musste, dass jetzt ein Motorschaden bevorsteht. bevorsteht oder dass der Auspuff undicht geworden ist. In Wirklichkeit hat der Fahrer nur den Ladedruck entsprechend zurückgenommen, um eben über die Distanz zu kommen. Naja, und immerhin liegt Berger an 15. Stelle. Wir sind in der 25. Runde. Piquet 1,2 vor Prost, 4,4 vor Lauda. Lauda also 3,1 hinter Prost. Schade, dass Niki Lauda am Start ein bisschen aufgehalten war und sich erst wieder mühsam nach vorne kämpfen musste. Erinnern Sie sich, hat De Angelis überholen müssen, Warwick und Tambay. Und zu dieser Zeit waren natürlich Piquet und Prost schon 6, 7 Sekunden vorne. Es wäre ja wunderschön, könnte Österreich heuer nach dem Motocross-Fahrer Heinz Kienigardner einen zweiten Weltmeister im Motorsport bekommen. Aber langsam, glaube ich, könnte sich Niki Laudas heutige Reifenwahl bezahlt machen. Er hat die etwas härteren Reifen, die vielleicht besser durchhalten, und sein Rückstand wird jetzt geringer. 26. Runde, Piquet 0,8 vor Prost, 3,7 vor Lauda. Damit hat Niki Lauda wieder eine halbe Sekunde gewonnen. Das heißt, Differenz Piquet-Prost gleich geblieben. Rückstand von Lauda geringer geworden. 3,7 auf Piquet, 2,9 auf Prost. Zweimal ist es ja heuer schon zu einem direkten Überholmanöver Niki Laudas gegen Alain Prost gekommen. Zweimal hat er seinen Teamkollegen überholt. Das war in Dijon, das war in Montreal. Im Bild die McLaren-Box. Die Spannung können Sie an den Gesichtern ablesen. Platz 3 für Niki Lauda, noch 24 Runden, minus 2,8 auf Prost und plus 21,4 auf den Viertplatzierten. Das ist Elio De Angelis mit dem Lotus Renault, also im Augenblick keinerlei Gefahr für die McLaren.
Well, we're definitely about to see something pretty exciting, because the gap between Prost in second place and Lauda in third is down to just about 1.8 seconds now. The remorseless, the most experienced of all, Niki Lauda, is closing on his teammate, and René Arnoux is in for a fresh set of good years.
Arnoux aus dem Cockpit heraus zu, hat sich schon daran gewöhnen müssen, dass nicht immer bei Ferrari alles heuer so besonders gut gestimmt hat. Niki Laudas Wunsch für heute wäre ja, ohne dumme Defekte, ohne Probleme dieses Rennen durchfahren zu können. Alles Weitere würde dann schon er besorgen. Er glaubt, dass die Weltmeisterschaftsentscheidung zwischen Prost und ihm dadurch entschieden wird, wer etwas mehr Glück hat, in anderen Worten, wer mehr Rennen beendet. Nach Zeltweg nur noch 4 Rennen. Allerdings in 4 Rennen, 4 mal 9, kann man 36 Punkte machen. Es ist also noch lange nichts entschieden, auch wenn Niki Lauda klar war, dass Zeltweg heute ein Schlüsselrennen für die Weltmeisterschaft ist, wie immer dieses Rennen ausgeht.
And I think we are now going to see Niki Lauda coming right up. It is Patrese, and on lap 28, I think Niki Lauda there in third position is definitely closing the gap very fast between himself and the second place man Prost and the leader Piquet.
Yes, he's visibly goes, whoops, and that's a bit like, that looks like one of the GPS Lotus's back view, I think, but of course I can't see from the back who it is, but whoever it is, yes, it is indeed, and that is De Angelis, and he's hurrying round because he's got a little fire going with the oil there in the back of his engine. That looks like a blown turbo, but it's certainly very terminal for De Angelis. Now, Lauda was visibly closer then, and really coming into position to start challenging for those first and second places.
Yes, and a pretty angry Elio De Angelis, because this is the second Grand Prix in succession that his turbo has gone. You will recall that it went in the German Grand Prix when he was in the lead, and he ripped his emergency air supply pipe off his helmet in some considerable dudgeon, high dudgeon, and is out of the race. And the wheel is turning, and De Angelis's fortunes are being reversed, because he had a superb record of reliability in the opening Grand Prix of the year. Now he's retired in both Germany and Austria, and that could well affect his placing in the championship.
Piquet looked pretty slithery through there, and that is one of the McLarens, and that's Alain Prost. Now, what has happened to Prost? But there is oil on. There's definitely oil on the track, because Piquet was sliding about there, and that would be from De Angelis, who didn't pull off the circuit, but decided, we've seen De Angelis do that before. He doesn't like walking, I don't think. But so he drove around dropping oil on the track, and Alain Prost has blown it again.
And a very anxious-looking Ron Dennis waiting with Prost's board, and this is the moment that transforms the World Championship, because Alain Prost is going to finish with no points. I was talking earlier on about the possibility of Prost settling for second place, and in order to get 6 points, well, now, for whatever reason, it's been blown, and Alain Prost will have no points. If Niki Lauda can keep going, and he's now in second position, there he is, he will have at least 6 points and will finish ahead of Alain Prost in the World Championship to lead it by 1.5 points, if that happens. But we're on lap 30 in this 51-lap race with Piquet leading.
Yes, and Lauda hasn't done what he did in Dallas, and that was last so much when you saw Prost go off, that he forgot to look where he was going and fell off himself. He's kept it going. Well, a little bit of sympathy for Prost, because there was oil on the track, but we've seen Prost crack under pressure too many times now for it. There you can see the oil. You could see the oil on the track. It looks wet there, and that was very naughty by De Angelis. But the point is this: that oil is visible on the track to a driver, and the others saw it, and Prost didn't. And Prost maybe was too wound up. The pressure seems to get to him. He cracked under the pressure and took himself and Piquet off at Zandvoort last year, which was the turning of the tide of the World Championship for him. It lost him. Undoubtedly, that mistake cost him the World Championship last year. He had the championship really locked up this year when a win in Dallas, when he was leading near the end of the race, when he fell off again. A very hard race, very difficult one, but he was unable to cope with the pressure. And now, admittedly, it was unfortunate that the leaders were the first to hit that oil slick, but you should be looking where you're going, and you can see it. And Piquet, for example, was going very hard. We saw him slither about on that oil slick, but he kept it together, and Prost didn't. And this may be the difference between the two. But in the meantime, this is a golden opportunity for Niki Lauda to put himself on top of the championship. And I think that Niki will desperately want the 9 points and won't be too thrilled with sitting behind Piquet for 6. So he's now got the second half of the race to get stuck in hard on Nelson Piquet, who will be very difficult to pass because the Brabham is very quick in a straight line.
But just look at the way that Nelson Piquet is being reeled in by Niki Lauda. I think he is going to pass him, and very soon too. This is lap 31 in this 51-lap race, and if Lauda gets past Nelson Piquet, which seems highly likely, the enormous Austrian crowd will positively erupt, because Niki Lauda, for all his success, has never won his home Grand Prix, and he's right with Nelson Piquet. I can hear the crowd roaring in the background as Lauda on lap 32 comes right up almost to the gearbox of Nelson Piquet's Brabham-BMW, and is within striking distance of challenging the Brazilian world champion for the lead. Brabham-BMW leads, as Nelson Piquet has done ever since the beginning of the race. Alain Prost is out of it and jeopardised to some extent, if not to a great extent, his World Championship chances, and they go into the approach to the Texaco bends via the Bosch curve. It's Piquet leading, Lauda second.
Yes, Lauda is obviously going all out to get past now, and this is where he may be having a look braking for the left-handers, but I don't think he's quite close enough. No, he's not. You can't pass somebody like Piquet that far behind. You've got to get alongside. He'll be looking to get through this next left-hander quickly to get close enough, but he's not going to be close enough as they go into the opposite curve, and he won't want to be trying overtaking there because of all that oil. He'll be, what he will want to do is get a good run round it and try and get up alongside Nelson going into the chicane, which is in fact of course the next corner after this, but no, he's dropped back a bit, and I think Nelson's got the message now. I think Niki had his best chance, certainly his of the early chances, right away when he got right up behind Nelson, and should have taken him a little bit by surprise. But I think Nelson's now looking to cover all his rear ends, and is going to make himself obviously as difficult as possible to pass.
And while this terrific scrap for the lead goes on between Nelson Piquet in the Brabham and Niki Lauda in the McLaren on lap 33, let me tell you that in third position is Ayrton Senna in the Hart-powered Tolman, 44 seconds behind Niki Lauda in second place. In third position is fourth position is Patrick Tambay in the Renault. In fifth position is Nigel Mansell, whose engine is sounding a bit rough to us. In sixth position, it's Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, and in seventh place, it's Teo Fabi in the second of the two Brabham-BMWs, only just out of the points, and everybody else has been lapped. So Piquet has lapped everybody up to Fabi, who is in seventh place. This is the battle for the lead. On lap 33, Piquet and Lauda. This is where Lauda on the previous lap closed right up to Nelson Piquet. The TAG engines have got the larger of two alternative-sized turbochargers on, because this is a circuit where you really want power. And the TAG engine, which has been so incredibly successful since it first ran at the Dutch Grand Prix last year, and when Lauda went out in second place in South Africa in the last Grand Prix of the year. And now Prost has won 4 Grand Prix and Lauda's won 3, and is he on his way to his 4th?
Yes, the back marker helped Niki then, and he's right up behind Piquet, and he may just be able to have a look into the Bosch curve. He's certainly having a look, but it's a very, very difficult place to pass into that Bosch curve because of that left-handed kink just coming in. But Niki will be disappointed that that little bit of help happened where it did for him, but he's really climbing all over the back of Nelson Piquet at the moment. But as I said before, passing Piquet, who does have a marginal superiority in a straight line, it would appear, is going to be a very difficult task. But he's got plenty of time in which to achieve it, and he's closer now. As I said before, I don't think he'll be diving down the inside, and that looks like Nigel Mansell pulling up to par, just as we miss, of course, the director once again missed the excitement, but we didn't miss anything because Niki, as I surmised, is not prepared to have a go on the inside there because the inside of the track's very oily. But he is almost close enough to have a look. Under braking, very close.
And while you watch this, there's an equally dramatic battle, and you'll never get the Austrian producer to move away from this, and I understand it, but there's an equally dramatic battle going on for third place, which is now held as Piquet laps the 7th place man Teo Fabi. Third position is now held by Patrick Tambay, who has passed Senna. Out of 5th place has gone Nigel Mansell. Up to 5th position has gone Michele Alboreto. Up to 6th place has gone Teo Fabi now, who has just been lapped. And now Lauda is actually closer at this point to Nelson Piquet than he has been at any time in the race, although Piquet pulls away a bit as they go into the Bosch curve. I think it is unlikely that the Brabham of number 1, Nelson Piquet, and the McLaren of number 8, Niki Lauda, have got different tyre compounds. Both Gordon Murray and Steve Nichols, who is Niki Lauda's race engineer, told me that they would be using pretty hard compounds, the 010 Michelin, and probably the same compound all round, because the circuit is so demanding. And although the McLaren is well known for being extremely light on tyres, I doubt that it would have a softer compound than the Brabham, in which case it's even Steven in terms of grip as Piquet goes into the Hella-Leek chicane with Lauda right behind him, lap 36. Well, the Austrian crowd really on its toes. And here is where Piquet pulls away. And now extremely fit Piquet, who I remember in Las Vegas when he won his first World Championship, actually had to be lifted out of the car. He was in such poor physical condition. He's in very good shape now. And there is Teo Fabi, number 2 in the second blue and white car, who's in 6th position, has been lapped. And soon, Michele Alboreto will be caught by Nelson Piquet, the leader, and Niki Lauda in 2nd place. He's in 5th position, and that's the first time that Alboreto has been in the points for a very long time, and he will be praying for reliability. Senna is into the pits. I hope they let us see that for you. And here he is. Senna into the pits now. Is it just a straightforward tyre change? He's on Michelin. Brakes on, it says, and that is to enable the rear wheels to be stopped turning so that the mechanic can make sure to get them off the uprights and hubs and get the new wheel and tyre on cleanly. So, Senna into the pits. Completing lap 36, the first 2. Don't forget that Alain Prost went out of the Austrian Grand Prix, the World Championship leader, on lap 29. At that time, only 4.5 points separated him from... And Senna's retiring. Senna's out. Only 4.5 points separated Niki Lauda and Alain Prost. And now, with Prost getting no points, even if Lauda finishes in 2nd place, he will take the lead in the World Championship. And with that situation, he really is going to take a lot of catching, because the psychological blow to Alain Prost will be very considerable indeed. He must wonder whether a Frenchman is ever fated to become world champion. He got so close to it last year and seemed to be in a commanding position this year. But Lauda hanging on superbly to Piquet. This is lap 37. Or not, in 243 Grand Prix, because it's Piquet's 90th, and that is Michele Alboreto that you saw just going through. And as I said, he's going to be caught very shortly by these two, the leaders, Piquet and Lauda, completing lap 37, coming up to the Ferrari. And I wonder if Michele will move over and let them through. He's an extremely polite and courteous chap, and he may not take too kindly to being lapped by the Brabham and the McLaren. On the other hand, he may give way to the inevitable quickly.
Yes, well, Niki will be sincerely hoping that Michele doesn't move over and let Nelson through immediately, because it's his best chance of getting Nelson held up a little bit round a corner to get Niki really close so that he can get a run at him. Because back to the old problem, it's difficult around these long, fast corners for the guy behind to keep very close, because he's got no air to his wings and he therefore doesn't have as much grip. So whilst you get sucked along on the straight, you get pushed back, as it were, round the corners. And so Niki needs, we've seen him examine all his possibilities, and it looks horribly that it will take either a mistake from Piquet, and we don't get many of those, or a shut your eyes and hope and pray effort from Niki, and we don't get many of those. So the best chance Niki's got of getting past is a delay from a back mark or a bit of confusion, which always works worst for the chap in front.
If Nelson Piquet wins this Grand Prix, he will be on 27 points, and with Elio De Angelis out of the race, with René Arnoux not in the first 6, and with Derek Warwick out of the race, that would automatically lift Nelson Piquet up to 3rd place in the championship, which is as it should be, because the top 3 drivers of 1984 are without doubt Piquet, Lauda, there they are, and Prost, who is out of the race. And now we are going to see how Michele Alboreto in the V6 turbocharged Ferrari copes with the threat to being lapped from Nelson Piquet there, going into the Glax curve with Niki Lauda behind him on lap 39 with 12 laps to go then. And it's getting very... Now this could be where the lead might change, because Piquet has got to concentrate partly on getting past Alboreto and partly keeping Lauda behind him.
Yes, I think he's going to catch him now in the Bosch curve. It's a question of whether he catches him enough to be slowed down. Not quite. Lauda, I'm sure, would like Alboreto to stay there till the end of this lap so that he can hold, with a bit of luck, hold Piquet up round the Jochen Rindt curve where the oil is, and maybe get a run up to the chicane, which is where Lauda has looked strongest on the circuit. He's got closest to Piquet every time going under braking to the chicane, and he looks very confident now, so he wants Alboreto to stick on the line and not let them through for this corner. And he's where he wants to be as regards Nelson, and he's very much where he wants to be. He's got through the corner beauty, that's the closest he's been, and I think if he can stay in the tow, Niki is going to have a big go to outbrake Nelson into the chicane. Nelson's coming over the tight line, Niki's having a look both sides. Oh, it's all a terrible mess. Oh dear, the camera went so terrible then. Why couldn't we see the whole thing?
Well, Alboreto is in 4th position now, behind the 3rd place man, who is Patrick Tambay, that we haven't seen for a long time, and Lauda leads. Niki Lauda takes the lead in the Austrian, his home Grand Prix, on lap 40 out of 51, and he's on his way.
Well, unfortunately, the importance of all that was missed by shoddy camera work and bad direction, because if we'd had a wide shot of the chicane, we could have seen Piquet, it looked, was trying to get up the inside of Alboreto, and that must have slowed him right down, because Niki got the run on him coming out of the chicane and actually passed him on the straight. But that's looked very much the end for Nelson Piquet as far as winning this race is concerned, although of course Niki still has to get past Alboreto. Now Piquet seems to be dropping back, which is odd. Maybe he made contact with Alboreto. Maybe we'll never know unless this wretched director goes off and watches some other motor races first and comes back and you know something about it.
Well, you can see how the Austrians feel about it. For years and years and years, they have waited and hoped to see their man, the great double world champion, Niki Lauda, win their own Grand Prix. He may be a tax exile living in Ibiza, and there is Ron Dennis, the highest man there, and a great cheer from the McLaren team as for the first time, and Lauda leads, and Piquet, I think, is probably out of the race because he's slowed right down. And very soon, I think we're going to have a new second place man, which will be Patrick Tambay, which will lift the almost lapped Alboreto up to 3rd. Farby in the 2nd Brabham-BMW to 4th. It will bring up into 5th place Riccardo Patrese, and to 6th Thierry Boutsen. So things are looking very fluid indeed.
So angry. I can't believe how this director is managing to miss everything that's exciting in what is a very good race, but the only trouble is a pity we can't see it. Now, there we see Niki going out of the chicane with Piquet in front of him. Now, I think, yes, now Piquet was snaking like mad then. I think he's made contact with Alboreto, and he may have a slow puncture or something, because he snaked just then going away. But, I mean, that doesn't really tell us anything. What is the matter with these people?
Well, either way, Niki Lauda leads now. Here is Lauda passing Piquet on the replay, of course, and as you can see, Michele Alboreto, who Piquet was right with, has got well clear. So at that point, Nelson Piquet was in trouble, and it seems to me that James' hypothesis is obviously the right one, that there was a contact between the Brabham and the Ferrari, and now the new leader, Niki Lauda, has got a rather easier problem in taking Michele Alboreto, because he hasn't got pressure from somebody else as Nelson Piquet had, and he's going to do it as they go up into the Hellenic curve. He goes smoothly through on braking to lap the man who is now in 4th position, Michele Alboreto. So Lauda leads, Tombe is second, Alboreto is in 3rd position now that Piquet is out of the race, with Fabi in 4th place and with Patrese in 5th position. And Fabi has unlapped himself with his teammate Nelson Piquet, so the Brazilian, who's had such awful luck this year, the world champion, it's almost a tradition in Grand Prix racing that the world champion does not get the championship the next year, and it looks as though that's going to certainly happen this year.
Yes, that's right. 1959-60, when Jack Brabham won it twice running in a Cooper. And that Niki Lauda slowing down. He's got an arm went up then, so that means that Lauda is in trouble of some sort. It looks like. Now let's just keep an eye on him, because this will be very dramatic if Lauda's in trouble. We've got Piquet going very slowly. When they went past the start-finish line, then he was 7 seconds behind Lauda already. Or Fabi. That's Fabi unlapping himself, so Niki is in trouble, but I can't see what sort, because engine troubles tend to be immediate and terminal.
Well, does this mean to say that we're going to see the first Renault victory of 1984, the thing that they've striven so hard but unsuccessfully for? Patrick Tombe is now in 2nd position. No, he's still in 3rd place, because Piquet is still in the running at the end of that lap, which was 42. And on lap 43, it's very likely that we'll see a change for 2nd place, with Tombe moving up, if we're allowed to see it, ahead of Nelson Piquet. And certainly you can see visually that Niki Lauda is going slower. You don't need a stopwatch to check that the Austrian is definitely going slower. He's still going pretty quick. Now, why would he have put an arm up? Obviously to let somebody through, but maybe he's lost a gear.
Yeah, and now Patrick Tombe has just gone past with smoke coming out of his car, so he's in trouble too. So it may be. Now Lauda's car looks, it's not smoking or anything, the tires all look to be on it and things. It looks to be in one piece. He may, of course, have lost his... Well, I don't think he'd be going quite that quickly if his turbocharger had failed without sort of going down the engine. But we will try and get some times and see if Lauda is going fast enough to hold on to that lead, because he's obviously limping, but he looks like a man who's out there trying to limp all the way to the line. So we'll just have to see how he gets on, because they still had the oil flag out on the... And that may be because of Tambe. He went past smoking, yes, and I see a line of oil going up the side of the track there. In fact, that's why they're coming over the other side of the track and then coming back. And whether Tambe laid an oil slick around the chicane or not, I can't see one there, but I could see it on the straight. So that was, yes, and there's a bit of oil there. And there is Tambe looking as if he's about to stop and park, or is he going to save himself a walk, a la De Angelis?
Liegend mit einem Rückstand von 46 Sekunden langsamer geworden. Wenn er ausfällt, wird Alboreto Dritter und dann ist Fabi Vierter, Patrese Fünfter und Butzen Sechster.
Große Chance ist der Österreichring für die Tour woanders. Eine sehr gute Strecke, weil er sehr schnell ist und man kann die ganze Kraft hier ausspielen. Wichtig ist hier, die richtigen Reifen zu wählen für das Rennen und zu versuchen, das Auto so schnell wie möglich über die volle Renndistanz zu bringen. Ob man Reifen wechseln muss oder nicht, wissen wir noch nicht. Das müssen wir erst im Training genau eruieren. Aber sonst fühle ich mich im Österreichring als Österreicher sehr wohl.
Vielleicht der erste Sieg hier drinnen?
Ich hoffe, weil es ist unbedingt notwendig, dass ich hier Punkte mache.
Das war Niki Lauda 24 Stunden vor dem Rennen. Ein Rennen, das ihm vielleicht in einem Schlüsselrennen zur diesjährigen Weltmeisterschaft den ersten Heimsieg eines Österreichers in Zeltweg-Knittelfeld beschert. Jonathan Palmer ist das, der Engländer, Vorjahrs Formel 2 Europameister. Laudas Vorsprung auf Piquet 7,6 Sekunden. Letzte Rundenzeit von Lauda 1,36. Ja, ja. Und die Runde davor war 1,40. Das heißt, Niki Lauda hat sehr gescheit und völlig richtig mit seinem berühmten Instinkt auf die gelb-roten Ölflaggen reagiert, hat gemerkt, alles in Ordnung und jetzt fährt er offenbar wieder etwas schneller. Der Vorsprung auf Piquet ist auch prompt größer geworden, 9,7 Sekunden. Patrick Tambay steigt aus. Damit Patrese 5., Boutsen 6. Die Streckenposten hier sehr fleißig, sehr aufmerksam. Der Österreichring soll ja nicht nur die schnellste Rennstrecke der Welt sein, sondern auch eine der sichersten. 135 Streckenposten sind hier im Einsatz. Gerhard Berger in der Kreiner-Kurve von Palmer überholt und von Lauda überrundet. Damit verliert Berger einen Platz, bleibt aber 11., weil inzwischen Tambay ausgeschieden ist. Aber das Qualifizieren an sich war für Berger schon ein Erfolg und den Grand Prix auszufahren wäre für ihn bereits eine großartige Premiere. Manfred Winkelhock, der viel mehr Erfahrung hat, wurde in 11 Grand Prix-Rennen heuer zweimal Achter. Das waren die besten Ergebnisse. Seit dem Jahr 1982 ist der ATS überhaupt ohne Punkte in der Weltmeisterschaft. Vierundvierzigste Runde. Lauda, dahinter Palmer und dann Gerhard Berger. Nach 44 Runden Lauda, Piquet, Alboreto, Fabi, Patrese und Boutsen in den Punkterängen. Nur noch 4 in der gleichen Runde. Sehr aufmerksam ist wieder die Streckenposten. Jede Ölspur wird zugeschüttet. 135 Streckenposten sind hier im Einsatz. Davon 71 heimische, 47 vom Salzburgring, 4 aus Frankreich, 2 aus Belgien, 6 aus Spanien, dazu die Sicherheitsstaffel, die Österreichring-Sicherheitsstaffel, 2 Rettungswagen, 8 Rettungsfahrzeuge, 1 Rettungshubschrauber und 14 Ärzte. Nur, dass Sie sehen, welcher Aufwand hier betrieben wird, um den Österreichring so sicher wie nur möglich zu halten. Hinter Lauda fährt Jonathan Palmer, der englische Spitalsarzt. Der Unfall von Palmer vor einem Monat in Brands Hatch war ja Ursache damals für den Abbruch. Vielleicht erinnern Sie sich noch.
Well, we'll know after the race, and I suspect not before, whether there is anything wrong with the cars of Lauda and Piquet. I've got a sneaking feeling that there is, because you see Palmer is now closing right up with Lauda, and I suspect grappling with his conscience about whether he ought to have the temerity to pass Lauda. Well, if he did grapple, he didn't grapple for very long, because Palmer has unlapped himself. So either, there's Piquet, so either Niki Lauda, now on lap 47, is being quite incredibly cool and relaxed, as Nelson Piquet has been on many occasions in the past, or the great Austrian has got a problem. Now, in that case, there he is, still with Jonathan Palmer. Is Lauda's problem as great as that of Nelson Piquet?
Lauda fährt hinter Jonathan Palmer her. Hier haben Sie einen Blick in die ATS-Box. Dieses Team hat nicht gerade die besten Mechaniker, aber den Reifenwechsel bei Berger haben sie relativ flott geschafft. Vor allem hat Gerhard Berger ja 3 Mechaniker selber angeheuert und für dieses Team engagiert. Kann Berger maximal einen Platz gekostet haben gegen den Franzosen Philippe Alliot. Jonathan Palmer, Niki Lauda, der sich jetzt darauf verlassen muss, dass Palmer vor ihm keinen Fehler macht. bei Geschwindigkeiten immerhin bis an die 300 Kilometer pro Stunde. Und hinter ihm Niki Lauda. Letzte Rundenzeit von Lauda 1:41,7. Zum Vergleich, Piquet fuhr 1:42,4, 7 Zehntelsekunden langsamer. Das heißt, Niki Lauda kann jetzt sein Rennen vollkommen auf Nelson Piquet abstimmen. Der Vorsprung auf den Weltmeister beträgt 10 Sekunden. Der Vorsprung auf Michele Alboreto, den dritten, 1 Minute 20. Theo Fabi 1 Minute 22. Es könnte also noch einen harten Kampf geben um den dritten Platz zwischen Alboreto und Fabi. Lauda stimmt seine Geschwindigkeit jetzt völlig auf jene von Nelson Piquet ab. Mehr ist im Augenblick sicherlich nicht nötig. Es ist ja nicht notwendig, einen Grand Prix mit Rekordvorsprung zu gewinnen. In Kyalami hatte Lauda einen Vorsprung von 1 Minute und 5 Sekunden im Ziel. In Dijon waren 7,1 Sekunden. In Brands Hatch 42 Sekunden, also fast eine Dreiviertelminute. Aber heute wäre jeder Österreicher schon mit einem Vorsprung von 2 bis 3 Zehntel nur zufrieden. Hundertstel sogar. Für Niki Lauda. 18 Kilometer trennen ihn von einem der größten Siege seiner Karriere. Vor ihm der Arrows BMW von Thierry Boutsen. Arrows fährt heute seinen 100. Grand Prix über zweite Plätze von Riccardo Patrese in Südafrika, und in Schweden ist Arrows bis jetzt nicht hinausgekommen. Boutsen hatte gestern zusätzliches Pech. Eine Felge ist gebrochen, und zwar, glaube ich, links hinten in der Schikane. Darum auch der schwere Unfall von Boutsen. Der Wagen wurde an der Seite stark beschädigt, aber repariert. Nelson Piquet 11,4 Sekunden Rückstand. Und seine letzte Rundenzeit 1:42. Die schnellsten Runden im Rennen fahren im Augenblick Patrese und Boutsen mit je 1:37 und plötzlich in dieser Runde Alboreto 1:35 und Fabi 1:36, ganz klar. Zwischen diesen beiden geht es ja auch um den dritten Platz im Rennen. Vielleicht heute der entscheidende Umschwung in der Formel-1-Weltmeisterschaft. Alain Prost führt seit dem ersten Rennen, seit seinem Sieg in Rio de Janeiro. Allerdings hat er dazu einen Ausfall des führenden Niki Lauda gebraucht. 2 Runden noch für Lauda. Vom 1. bis zum 12. Rennen also Alain Prost in Führung der Weltmeisterschaft.
Over the World Championship leadership from his teammate Alain Prost. He's 4.5 points behind Prost at the moment, because Prost is still leading the World Championship, even though he is out of the race. And the positions will be exactly reversed if Lauda wins, because he will get 9 points, take away the 4.5 that Prost leads him by at the moment. And Niki Lauda, as we look down the track to find the second place man, Nelson Piquet, and there he is. And Lauda would be leading the World Championship by 4.5 points. Lauda now into the Bosch curve as Nelson Piquet exits the Glatz curve. So there is about half a mile, I should think, between them. And at racing speeds, even at racing speeds, that takes quite a long time. As we know, some 13 seconds into the Texaco Benz, Niki Lauda. World champion in 1975, world champion in 1977, second in the World Championship in 1976 to James Hunt, in spite of having that dreadful crash at the Nürburgring in his Ferrari. possibly, indeed probably, world champion in 1984. An amazing record. And he's now starting his 51st and last lap. Niki Lauda into the Hella-Licht-Benz. James.
Well, marvellous result for Niki. He really deserved the race. He was the quickest man on the circuit throughout, so it's a rightful winner. It's a pity that he and Piquet both seemed to run into some sort of minor mechanical trouble towards the end of the race, and the battle was unable to continue. Of course, it was a race that was highlighted, if anything, by what we didn't see, because really the television direction by the Austrian crew was absolutely disgraceful. They managed to, as soon as anything looked like being exciting on the track, they'd change the shot or move away or give us the wrong shot. So hopefully before next year they'll find a director who's seen a motor race before and understands something. But altogether, apart from that, it's been a very exciting race with the three main contenders for the World Championship out battering away hard as they could up front. And of course the big story is that Alain Prost would appear to have blown it again. He had his chance. He was the one who flew off on the oil. Admittedly, it was a horrible oil slick and very difficult to deal with. But Piquet was the first to arrive on it, which is always the most difficult. He handled it with a bit of a slither, and Lauda got round. So Alain Prost, once again, for the third time in 2 seasons, is doing his best to kill his World Championship chances. Of course, he's by no means out of it, but he hasn't half given himself a setback today.
Niki Lauda almost home magnificently to win his 23rd Grand Prix, his first ever Austrian Grand Prix. The crowd will justifiably go wild. Niki Lauda crosses the line, raises his hand, wins the Austrian Grand Prix, takes the lead in the World Championship, increases the McLaren massive lead in the Constructors' World Championship, and in second place will be Nelson Piquet. The camera searches for him, finds him coming out of the Jochen Rindt curve. There he is. The reigning world champion gets 6 points for second position to Niki Lauda, the winner.
Rückstand. Jetzt sind es 23,5 Sekunden. Als dritter wird Alboreto kommen. Als vierter Fabi und damit einer Runde Rückstand. 5. Butzen und 6. Sura. 7. Arnoux, 8. Patrese, 9. Eno, 10. Polmer, 11. Alliot und 12. Berger, der mit 3 Runden Rückstand seinen ersten Grand Prix großartig zu Ende gefahren hat. 9 Punkte für Lauda, 6 Punkte für Piquet, 4 für Alboreto, 3 für Fabi, 2 für Butzen und 1 für Sura. Für den Schweizer der erste Weltmeisterschaftspunkt in dieser Saison, für Fabi schon der 4. Platz, für Butzen das beste Formel-1-Ergebnis seiner Karriere. Und für Michele Alboreto, den Sieger des belgischen Grand Prix in Zolder, auch ein sehr schöner Erfolg und auch dieser Mann darf sich freuen. Gerhard Berger, erster Grand Prix und auf Anhieb im Ziel. Und wenn Sie zurückdenken, wie viele Grand Prix ATS durch Defekte nicht beenden konnte, dann gewinnt die Leistung des 24-jährigen Tirolers unbedingt noch an Wert. Erster Lauda, 12. Berger. Eine Runde Rückstand für die beiden Aeros BMW, 5. Butzen, 6. Sura. Und das ist der Held des Tages, Niki Lauda. Heimsiege in der Formel 1 sind ja so schwer zu erreichen, wenn Sie sich erinnern. Jacques X hat niemals den belgischen Grand Prix gewinnen können, Graham Hill nie den englischen, Ronnie Peterson nie den schwedischen. Es gab bei den Brasilianern einige Heimsiege durch Fittipaldi und Pace. Und noch nie haben wir den Weltmeisterschaftsstand mit so viel Freude ausgerechnet. Lauda führt mit 48 Punkten, vor Prost mit 43,5. De Angelis bleibt Dritter, Arnoux bleibt Vierter. Piquet hat auf 24 Punkte aufgeholt, halb so viele Punkte wie Niki Lauda. In der Sprache der Tennisspieler müsste man fast sagen, Spiel, Satz und Sieg für Niki Lauda. Sieg in Zeltweg, Führung in der Weltmeisterschaft. Mit dem Rücken zur Kamera Ingenieur Gabriele Kadringer, das ist der Chefingenieur der FISA, der alle Autos im Ziel abwiegt und genau überprüft, ob sie alle dem Reglement entsprechen. Piano hat gerade Niki Lauda gesagt, lasst mir ein bisschen Zeit. Er braucht gerade nach solchen Rennen immer sehr viel Luft rund um sich und das ist der ausgefallene Wagen von Alain Prost. Kontrastpunkt, die Gratulationen der McLaren-Mechaniker. Links im Bild geschäftige FISA-Funktionäre. Die ersten Gespräche zwischen Niki Lauda und Nelson Piquet. Links im Bild haben Sie Ernest Huppert, der Statthalter Bernie Ecclestones, der diesen Grand Prix hier veranstaltet hat. Sieg auf dem Österreichring wurden schon triumphal gefeiert. Wer immer hier gewonnen hat, war ein großartiger Sieger, aber die Begeisterung noch nie so groß wie heute. Sieg für Lauda, Führung in der Weltmeisterschaft, Rekordbesuch mit 150.000 Zuschauern und 4 Rennen sind noch zu fahren. Nächsten Sonntag Zandvoort, in 3 Wochen Monza, dann Anfang Oktober Nürburgring und Ende Oktober ein neuer Grand Prix Estoril in Portugal.
Ein super Tag in der Geschichte des österreichischen Motorsports. Niki Lauda, der große Sieger, nach einem großen Duell mit Nelson Piquet.
Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet und Michele Alboreto auf ihrer Ehrenrunde.
Lauda, Piquet, Alboreto, die 3 werden jetzt...
Im 10. Anlauf hat Niki Lauda endlich geschafft, auf dem Österreichring zu gewinnen. Ein Sieg, der nicht nur für ihn, sondern für den ganzen österreichischen Motorsport sehr viel wert sein muss. Und hier sehen wir ihn im Gespräch mit McLaren-Chef Ron Dennis. Dennis war schon vor, naja, es sind schon 17 Jahre Mechaniker eines Österreichers, Mechaniker von Jochen Rindt. Willi Dunkel gratuliert. Hat Niki Lauda wie immer auch auf diesen Grand Prix bestens vorbereitet. Für Niki Lauda der bereits 23. Grand Prix-Sieg seiner Karriere. Ein Sieg fehlt es nur noch auf Fangio, 2 Siege fehlen auf Jimmy Clark und 4 Siege auf Jackie Stewart. 382,5 Weltmeisterschaftspunkte bereits.
Please go out! Go out!
FISA-Präsident Balestre hat gratuliert.
Okay, thank you. Please. Stay quiet, please. Stay quiet. It's your national anthem.
I know. It's fine. Put the cap inside. Put the cap in. Put the cap in. Cap. Camera.
Have any fire here if you talk? So, hier drüben hast du die Prüfer nur deine, das Deckspiel. Das ist sehr cool.
I was ready for come to push your car for the last lap, right? Yeah, but his guy's under the weight, I have to wait.
Niki, herzlichste Gratulation zu deinem, wie ich glaube, schönsten und zugleich auch wichtigsten Sieg. Wie war das, dieses taktische Superrennen aus deiner Sicht?
Es lief eigentlich alles normal ab, solange also das Auto optimal funktioniert. Ich habe dann Piquet überholen können, weil er wurde immer langsamer. Und kaum war ich bei ihm vorbei, ist mein vierter Gang kaputt gegangen. Und dann habe ich mir gedacht, so, jetzt ist es aus.
Das war in dem Moment, wie du die Hand gehoben hast und langsam geworden bist.
Richtig, ich glaube, das komplette Getriebe ist kaputt. Habe dann versucht, noch irgendwelche Gänge zu finden und habe eben alle gefunden, außer der vierten. Und bin dann immer dritte, fünfte gefahren. Aber Gott sei Dank hat es gereicht.
Und dass du so überlegen das Rennen diktieren konntest, war sicherlich mit einer Entscheidung der harten Reifen. Das scheint am Schluss aufgegangen zu sein, denn alle anderen sind langsamer geworden.
Ich glaube, dass Piquet eigentlich auch mit dem Auto Probleme hatte. Da hat er mir jetzt gerade gesagt, es waren nur die Reifen. Also ich habe einen Riesenschwein gehabt, dass ich die richtigen drauf gemacht habe.
Also eine taktische Meisterleistung von Niki. Aber für die Weltmeisterschaft könnte und sollte das schon der vorentscheidende Sieg sein. Ein Vorsprung von 5,5 Punkten nun für die letzten Rennen.
Ja, ich bin froh, dass es so ist, aber wie gesagt, es kommen noch 4 Rennen und da müssen wir abwarten.
Die Ölspur, auf der Alain Prost hinausgerutscht ist, hast du die rechtzeitig gesehen oder war das auch für dich eine kritische Situation? Weil Nelson Piquet ist ja fast auch hinausgerutscht.
Ja, mein Glück war eben, dass Prost sich dort gedreht hat und ich habe schon den Rauch aufsteigen gesehen. Dadurch habe ich gebremst und bin überhaupt nicht aufs Öl draufgekommen.
Fein, und glaube ich, du bist hier 10-mal gestartet. Das erste Mal ein Sieg auf heimischem Boden und gleich vor so einer Kulisse. Wie fühlt man sich da?
Das ist das schönste Rennen in Österreich zu gewinnen, keine Frage.
Danke.
So, Achtung! Und letzte Interviews und nun die große Sektflasche. Und unsere Gendarmen werden auch ein bisschen bekleckerte Uniformen